doobie doobie doo 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 doobie doobie doo doo doo.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
I had to do a remix of your theme song.
What's going on, JB?
Oh man, Sabs, good to see you this early.
I
All
know.
right. Oh my goodness, it is early, but that is okay. We are here. Welcome, everybody. I know this is not our typical time, but it's good to have you here. Welcome to the Sabby and Jaybe show. I am James Fauntleroy, your host, and this is my co-host, Sabrina Salvati. Hey, say hi, Sabrina.
What's up?
Just to let you guys know, the Sabby and Jaybe show is available on the Revolutionary Blackout Network every single Thursday, typically at 6, but we're doing a special time today. Also, you can catch Sabby tomorrow evening here on RBN at 6 p.m. And then you can catch me on Sundays at 1 p.m. on the JB show on RBN. Also, just to let you guys know, Sabby, you're going to be doing a special stream starting at 6 p.m. tonight.
Yeah, I'll be going live at 6 tonight instead of 8 because Max Blumenthal's coming on. So it'll be a little bit earlier for me as well.
Nice. And so just to let you guys know, thank you so much to all the patrons on Patreon. Without you guys, we will not be able to do this. Also, just to let you guys know, if you guys would like to, you guys can join our mailing list. It is scrolling at the bottom of the screen on our Substack. Also, to make sure that we pay our staff, please make sure also to go to the fundraiser. Venmo is at Revolutionary Blackout, and then Cash App is $$ mutual aid forever. You guys can also contribute to that so that we can pay for Aaron, who does our graphics. So thank you so very much. And as you can see, there is the RBN crew and 2 kitties. So
I love
so
that
thank you.
thumbnail.
So me too. It's awesome. Aaron made it actually, so that's makes it even more sweeter. So as per usual, I'm going to go into the chat and say hello to everybody because that's how we do. So starting off, Mario I. Vargas says, they're not left, they're armchair quarterbacks. The real left meets in the streets. It's going to be interesting. All right. We also have Monarch saying there is Twitter left and Rage Against the War Machine War. War Machine War? I think you meant to say War Machine left. Thank you so very much. And then Samuel is in the chat saying unity. Unity. You remember that from Dave Chappelle?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Emoji is in the chat saying, I like to see Savvy try and build some bridges and make comrades. I think she already is. She's been doing that for a while. All right.
I think so.
Edward Gunn, thank you so much for becoming a member. We have a new member. Clap it up for Edward Gunn. Thank you so much. All right. Pitchforks are coming, says, Hey, remember that that Pepsi commercial with Ray Charles? You got the right one, baby.
Yep. Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. That was funny. Sakudo says, yo, what's good, y'all? It's good to see you, Sakudo. Sarina Sawyer says, greetings, comrades. It was almost 90 degrees Fahrenheit yesterday here in Texas, but dropped to almost 30s overnight. I don't think Texas will be inhabitable in a few decades with how worse it's getting each year. Yikes.
Yeah, we got a snowstorm last night.
Really? Wow. That's crazy. Well, And then we have Eric in the chat saying, what is this? The early bird left?
Yeah.
Rick Solis, good to see you. And Hugo Gutierrez says, today is early. Bryce Smith says, sup, JB and Sabby. Great Teen says, great idea, y'all. I'm going to get some coffee. Go ahead, grab your coffee. You have Cool Blue up in the chat saying, good afternoon, everyone. Raziel the Great says, oh my God, I'm here early. That's right. Number 6 says, thank you, Aaron. It's actually Aaron with an E, E-R-I-N. Saul says, Sabby, be sure to talk to Max about Code Pink and why they decided to defect from the anti-war rally. Know who you're getting in bed with before you join the rally. That's interesting.
Well, we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, you know, I got a lot to talk about. Yeah. Black in the Empire! Happy New Year! He said Happy New Year. Nice. Yipper99 is also in the chat. Good seeing y'all really early. Yeah. Little is also in the chat. You can't daunt the font. Thank you. The Jam Mom come in saying, hey, everyone. All right. Prime 54 says, you might be right. Majority of World Socialist website dissenters don't seem to be POC. Interesting. Matt Carey says, excited to see what the topic is today. Tony Bananas says, hype for this. All right. So, let me check to see on Rockfin. Not yet. All right. So, Sabs. There was a article that you and I came across. It was shared by Colin of Indie Left Media. And I'll just show you guys the title of the article. And this is something that he basically has a title saying why I left the online left. And I have this here. So, leaving the online left.
Can we explain to can we just explain to everyone who this is so that they're aware?
Sure. So this is from Chris Legion. Chris Legion was someone who you see all the time on Twitter. And then Chris Legion also does organizing on the ground. And he decided, or they decided.
Yeah, he was also, you're breaking up a little bit, JB. Yeah, he was a part of Indie News Network too. He was one of the commentators for Network. So it was kind of sad, like, to see this, because I think that Chris is one of those people that really did want to see some type of change and improvement. But I can't disagree with what he says in this article.
Yeah. I'm going to disconnect really quick and then reconnect because my connection might be a little bit wonky right now. So I'll be right back. So
okay. So while JB does that, I just want to tell you guys a little bit more about this. So Chris Legion has a Substack, and he wrote this article called Why I Left the Online Left. And we want to talk about this because there's a number of things that I think JB and I have seen happen in reference to the online left, like being in this space. And I saw some of these things kind of happening before I had my show, before I joined RBN. But, after being in this space, I see it more. And I think it's actually increased, and I think it's become worse since I've joined this space. So I think that what he's talking about here, he's talking about his experience. And all I ask is that when you are listening to this, to just keep an open mind, because I don't want you to feel like he's just trying to speak badly about people. In fact, I think he rarely even mentions a name like in this, except for the people who helped him. He mentions the people who helped him. But I think that it's also important that you understand that this was written before the rally. So this article is not in response to that. This was written before the rally. We were going to talk about it last week, but I remember I had scheduling issues and I was also packing to head out of town. So that's why we didn't cover it last Thursday. But just listen to this article with the open mind. That's all I ask. Even if you feel it could be you that he's talking about, I think he says some things here that really should be taken into consideration.
And this is a good lesson for me as well, because I took this to heart. And for me to, for what he said, I think this is something for me to reflect on, do some self-reflection on myself too. So I think that was good for me. Let me share it right quick. Is it big enough? Hang on. Let me see if I can make it just a little bit bigger. All right. Okay, so this is from Waking Up with Chris Legion. It says, why I left the online left. He says, my departure from the online left and its inability to solve its own internal insecurities. So let's begin. It says, before I begin, I would like to express that nothing I'm about to discuss in this article is directed at anyone over at Indie News Network and Revolutionary Blackout Network who have supported me these past several years. My good friends Indy and Reef have been nothing but supportive of my opinions and on the state of the current political climate as the changes that many of us face on our side of the ideological spectrum. As for those of you who actually care, I haven't been around the online left spaces as of late. After a frustrating time dealing with heavy-handed censorship on both Twitter and many other platforms, and the massive amounts of snowflake, hypersensitive online leftists, I have decided to leave the online left and move on to take care of my family and focus on my personal and professional life path. Although my ideology still remains unwavering, I refuse to be a part of a movement that isolates itself from any hopes of substantial change. From social Dems who seem to be more obsessed with keeping the activist left focused on irrelevant distractions, creepy sex pests, Marxist cult leaders who like to take advantage of those under them who suffer from desperate circumstances, to those who start unnecessary divisions over non-consequential historical events. We can also add to many times that I lost followers for simply chuckling over the ridiculous term of MAGA communism. To be honest, it was an unrealistic attempt to court the right who would only take up arms against the notion of ever entertaining the thought of having a communist society. It was disturbing to see many fragile followers stop following me for that disagreement, even though we agreed on 99.9% on other ideological takes. Do you want me to stop there and comment, or do you want me to keep going?
So this is something I think both of us have noticed this as well, JB. It's immediately that if you say something that is not particularly considered popular at that point in time, there seems to be this call to cancel people, not wanting to talk to them, like that kind of thing. We've seen this happen multiple times. Like this actually goes all the way back to force the vote. If we think about it, like people, deciding that they didn't want to have any interaction with people who supported it or people who were against it, like that kind of thing. And it happens often on the left. And I think what's really frustrating for me is the fact that we just can't seem to come together at all. I feel like it's very divided. There's a lot of dysfunction, and you don't see people having this issue on the right. And that's the part that's frustrating, because at the end of the day, we're not getting anything done. And we're not getting, you and I talked about this, we're not getting any wins.
Yeah. The question is like, what wins are we looking for, and what is necessary in order to achieve these? And one thing that we all know is for sure, the left is small.
Hold on
A lot
one
of people
second.
don't want to.
Can I address this? A non-user,
Sure.
Sabby, your channel trying to cancel WSWS at this exact moment. No, I never said to cancel them. I never said not to read them. I never said to stop following them. We had a disagreement. So there's a difference between having a disagreement and telling people don't follow this person, don't read their stuff. I didn't say any of those things. And I will continue to read articles from WWS on my show. That is your perception.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be very clear. We're not saying
Yeah.
that you have to agree with people on everything. You can have disagreements, but I haven't come to you and told you not to associate with them. That's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
JB.
Mm-hmm. Of course. And that's part of it, right? You know, there's a part of it where we look at the
If
people.
that's the conclusion that you came to, that's on you. Okay? If that's the conclusion that you came to, that is on you. And you said you read the comments. I'm not in the comments section. I'm not the one commenting there. So that's on you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, go ahead, JB.
Yeah. And so what needs to happen is there was somebody that I was listening to a couple days ago, and they said one of the things that I think is one of the biggest issues is that if somebody has a problematic take, or if someone has a view that's problematic, that we see as problematic, the automatic response is, nope, they're done. We leave. We're out. And instead of actually going and saying, okay, I don't agree with this, and here's why. And on top of that, and it's not just having a conversation, it's okay, so I'm going to do this action. And as I'm going to this action, do you want to come? Do you support this? Okay. Do you support this? Okay. Let's go. And then if they have a problematic take, then we can use that opportunity to educate. Because there's a kind of a mentality where it's like, no, if you haven't gotten to this point yet, then I'm not going to associate with you whatsoever. And I'm not going to entertain even uniting with you on different issues that we may agree on. Even though we could educate them and move them to different positions. Because a lot of times and it's like I told you, I think the other day, is that a lot of people who have problematic takes, why do they have those takes in the first place? Because a lot of times people who have these takes are due to the brainwashing that the oligarchs and the propagandists at the top usually put in order to create division. And so that's why I think it's important for us to give grace to be able to educate people on certain things.
Yeah, another thing I think that comes up sometimes, JB, is that people don't think that you should talk to people that you disagree with. So I've had people say that to me too. Like, why are you bringing this person on? We don't like this person. You disagree with this person. It's a waste of time. Like, I don't agree with that. I think that you should talk to people that you disagree with. But there have been people, and you've seen this as well. There have been people in this space that have been canceled because they interviewed people that other people was just like, no, you shouldn't talk to this person because they don't agree with you on all the issues. And I'm like, it's become very apparent to me that on the left, and my sister gave this criticism as well as to why she doesn't want anything to deal with like the left. And she said this because she said, it seems like if you don't pass this 100% purity test on the left, then you're automatically canceled. And so she said that like that's why she wants nothing to do with it, even though she agrees with the issues, like she agrees with Medicare for all and all of that, all those policies. She doesn't want anything to do with it because of the things that she's seen, particularly like online. But I think in that sense, it's almost like if you don't want people to talk to people they disagree with, then it's like you just want to be in an echo chamber.
Yeah.
And then how are you supposed to build a movement in an echo chamber? Like, how are you supposed to, look, me and Norm Finkelstein do not agree, obviously, has been brought to my attention, on the issue of wealth in this country, on the issue of, he made the statement that white people are just a smidge above black people. We don't agree on that. So what are we doing about that? We're having a conversation about it. You see what I mean? What if I would have just been like, no, I'm not going to talk to you because I disagree with what you said?
Yeah. I'll put it to you this way. As someone that preached door to door for almost 20 years, I'll put it to you this way. Here's one thing that we never did when I was preaching door to door for a long time. We never preached to each other at each other's doors. We went to people who were non-believers. Why? Because you don't grow your numbers with believers because they're already there. And so the thing is that in order to grow your numbers, you need to talk to people who may disagree with you on some things. And here's the thing. Some people are going to misconstrue and say that we're talking about going to the people who are beyond the pale. We're not going to the Richard Spencers and people like that. No. We're talking about just the average person who may have a couple problematic takes. And look, it's okay to welcome them and then help them readjust, because realizing that some of these problematic takes are a means to divide us in order to make sure that we stay separate. And so to sit here and to X out anybody who has a different of opinion is deeply problematic. And here, look, I look at it like this. You will not be dangerous if you stick with the people who you only agree with. You're not going to be dangerous. Yep. What made the Black Panthers dangerous? They helped form the Rainbow Coalition.
Yep.
No doubt that the Young Patriots has some problematic takes. Some members had some problematic positions. Hell, they even had they used to fly the Confederate flag.
Yep.
But after educating them, coming together on issues, and then educating them on why having the Confederate flag is problematic, they learned, grew, took the Confederate flag, threw it out, and then continued to be in community with the Black Panthers and to form and build the Rainbow Coalition. And so then that's when they became dangerous. To who? The establishment. They became dangerous to the oligarchs, because the Young Patriots were doing strong actions just like the Black Panthers were. And so what if they canceled them and said, oh, we're not going to do anything? Because look, they fly the Confederate flag. We're not going to team up with them. But what did they do? They taught them. They were humble enough to learn, and they taught them. And then they learned and they readjusted. Now, by the way, some Black Panthers left the organization when they did the Rainbow Coalition.
Yep. That's a piece I think that a lot of people don't mention is that piece right there. But like, in order for them to educate them, they had to talk to them first.
Yeah. And
the Rainbow Coalition would have never happened if they just said, nope, I'm not going to talk to those people. Not at all. They had to educate them first. Yeah. You don't educate people by avoiding them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's like being in school and a teacher rejecting all the students in her class because they don't know math, but you're the math teacher.
Yeah.
You have to let the students come inside the class and sit down in order for you to be able to teach them. You have to have an environment which is conducive so that they won't constantly be at odds and trying to defend themselves in order for them to actually learn. Because when somebody is constantly defensive, they're not going to take in information.
Yep.
They can't. If you're constantly on the defensive, you can't understand what somebody's telling you. But then when you're at a level where you're not on the defensive and your wall's not up, then you're able to learn and see, I had this problematic take. Just like I had to come to terms with, just because I'm a gay man does not mean I'm not susceptible to misogyny and sexism. I'm not free from that. I have to keep on that all the time. And then women, I make sure that wall is down, but they also come to me like I'm a brother. And they're like, JB, I understand that, you're trying to help us, but this may not be right. Oh, snap. Okay, I'm sorry. And then I readjust. So as a perspective, as a man, I have to readjust all the time. Because I realize, number one, I do have a privilege. I'm gay, but I'm still a man. I have a privilege, right? I'm also cis. That's also a privilege. And another thing is, I also have to realize that I have a lot to learn. But it's also that they came at me in a non-threatening way. And they came at me and they were like, JB, I don't know if you should be doing that. It's like, oh, snap. All right, I got you. Now, is this going to happen every single time? No, it's not going to happen every single time. There's some bad faith actors out there. We're talking about the people who are acting in good faith, who do want to change the system, but they're going about it the wrong way. That's the point.
Yeah, and to clarify, because I think some people may think we're referring to the rally. This isn't about the rally. This is about the article written by Chris. Do you want to get back to that, JB? Because there's some other things that he says there. And again, for those just joining, this article was written before the rally. And this is from Chris Legion.
This was written in January.
Yep.
So he continues, once again, it was just one more proof of what I expected in my current evaluations of the online left. Combine these instances with 3-letter agency ops, and we have a perfect recipe for delusional perceived trust issues. I actually had one comrade who I fully supported, who decided one day out of the blue that I was an op. So needless to say, I was canceled by that individual. Many times I've reached out to many of those on the activist online left. And no matter how many times we agreed on an issue, it seemed that many of them were more concerned with the idolization and praise of themselves rather than the actual causes they were advocating for on the daily live streams. Thin-skinned online leftists would often invite me on their shows, but when I couldn't make it for personal issues like working 12-hour shifts at my illegalized slavery job, the very same thin-skinned online leftists would take it personal. And in many cases, would exclude me from events and protests they were scheduling and advocating for. The only time I seemed to gain support from higher profile leftists was when a tweet of mine went viral, which basically confirmed my suspicion that they were just in the game for a back rub from their audiences.
Can I chime in here for a second about the job thing? I think it's a misconception that all of us that have like YouTube shows are doing YouTube shows full time. And Chris is a perfect example of that. Like he has had a full-time job. So sometimes there are things that, and I totally get it. Like sometimes people, they may reach out and ask like, if you can come on, and just not really understanding why you can't just drop what you're doing at that point in time and go onto their show. Because especially for those who do it full time, for them, this is their full-time gig. So if you message them, they may be able to just, hop right on. But most of us in this YouTube space that have these shows have a job. And so I think that's sometimes what some people may not grasp that. So some people, there are times where people will take offense if they like you, but you just can't stop what you're doing and just hop right on, or they'll take it as an insult in a sense, as to though, you don't have time for me, or you don't want to come on, not considering the fact that obviously someone like Chris had a job where he works 12 hours a day. So I do want to dispel that myth that all of us online with these YouTube shows have full-time jobs. That's not true. Or excuse me, are doing the show full-time and don't have another job. That's not true.
Yeah. And then you got people like me who are disabled, who have dialysis 3 days a week. And then there are times where people will be like, JB, can you come on my show? And I'll be like, okay, great. What time? 10 p.m. And I'm like, I can't. I have dialysis the next day. I got to be up at 4:30 in the morning. You know, and a great example of somebody who was very kind and you know, and adjusted their schedule was people like Colin. Colin, who's in the chat. Thanks for the super chat, Colin. Thank you so much. But I'm using you as an example, Colin, that, you know, Colin was like, Colin, number one, came to me a week in advance and he was like, hey, I'd like for you to do that. I was like, I can't do it at this day. I still would love to join you. He was like, okay, well, let's do it this day. We can tape it and then we can record it and then we can air it the next day. I'm like, okay, that works for me. And it worked out beautifully. Why? Because, you know, we understood that, you know, not everybody has the same circumstance. And so that was very compassionate on his part and very insightful on his part in order to do it that way, to maneuver it that way. But just letting you know, like people like me, I don't even make enough to do this. And if I didn't have, you know, disability benefits, then I would have to have a regular job just like everybody else. But if I had a job, I wouldn't be able to do this, by the way.
Yeah, even when it comes to like streaming, you know, like live streaming, like content and stuff like that, there's another thing too, where sometimes people will take offense if you're streaming the same time as them. And it's like, look, you do this full time. Some of us have to work during the day, you know, like even for me, like typically I would not be available at this time. This week's a little bit of an exception, but typically I would not be available during this time. That's why you guys notice I always stream in the evening for the most part. But these are just things I feel like people just don't seem to understand if they are doing it full time.
Yeah. Yeah. Like for instance, I know CJ has to work. So he had, you know, his work schedule is a little bit more flexible, but CJ has a job. You know, he can't just jump on whatever he wants. Plus he got a family. He got kids, you know, he got a wife and kids. Yep. So yeah. So let's go back into this. Chris continues, when my account was censored and none of my tweets were hitting well, they were really nowhere to be found. Not a single mention or concern. Not a single amount of support, with the exception of my comrades at Indie News Network. The levels of distrust by the left have pushed away potential support from others who are eager beginners just learning of the leftist ideology and its interpretation of life. Yes, technically, I was new to the movement, and they told me to get lost. In my cases, people just wanted to be a part of substantial change, but were turned away by the left. So what's the question? How do you grow a movement when everyone who doesn't fit the exact criteria of leftist excellence doesn't get accepted and is somehow perceived as a threat looking to dismantle it?
A lot of people are pushed away, JB. I mean, we've seen this as well. It's like, especially for people who are new to it, if someone's just coming around to, I mean, a lot of us came from like the Bernie movement, but for people who are like new to it, it's like this automatic dismissal if you aren't already there yet. And I said this on a call-in show a while back. I was telling a caller that like, look, when someone finally comes around to it and they get there, don't shame them for getting there. You know, not everybody moves at the same pace. Not everyone. I was talking to, this is one of the things I brought up with the journalist from World Socialist website, when he brought up the fact that they already knew early on who AOC and them were. And I said, well, that's great, but you know, not everybody was at that point yet. And like some of us voted for Obama back in 2008. You know, everybody has their own time when they wake up, you know, in a sense. But to fault people because they didn't realize something as soon as you realized it, that's what I said before. When they get there, don't shame them for getting there.
Yeah.
You know,
My question is, and I'm just using you as example, Sabby. Um, if I knew the political stances that you had 6 years ago, would you still be someone who was considered on the left 6 years ago?
that's well, 6 years ago was
2016? No,
2016.
2017.
Yeah, that was still Bernie. So that was still
Hmm.
around the Bernie, you know, that's when I was still like hoping
Hmm.
and believing in Bernie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if, I mean, let's go further. Let's go 10 years ago, right?
Yeah. Very different.
Yeah.
Very different.
A very different Sabby Sabs. JB was also a very different person 10 years ago. So the thing is that if we are having this touch tone and we're measuring it by who we were 10 years ago, we wouldn't be accepted on the left.
Nope.
We got to realize that some people are just starting their journey right now. Some people are just learning what the word proletariat means. Some people are just learning what the means of production is. They don't know. And the thing is that we have to, some people are just realizing, oh, snap. Me saying what I said about trans people is actually helping the establishment to keep us divided. Some people are learning that right now. Some people are learning just now some of their problematic takes about black on black crime. They're learning that right now.
Yep.
But are we going to sit there and go, oh no, you had that opinion 6 months ago, so we're not going to educate you? And again, I'm talking about people who are arguing or maybe arguing. Some people who are trying to find out in good faith. I'm not talking about the bad faith actors. That's not who I'm talking about. Because you can kind of tell that kind of quickly. But the people who are in good faith that are just trying to figure out why the system is the way it is, guess what? Some of them may be church-going, gun-toting people who thought that Donald Trump was actually going to do something good for them. And then guess what? They got played. And some of those same people also were game to voting for Bernie too. But why? Sorry, go ahead.
You know, something that churches are really good at, and I know, not everyone's religious, but one thing that churches are really good at is reaching people that don't necessarily agree. I know because I grew up in the church. That was one of the things that was really like ingrained in us, was to reach the people when we would do outreach, reach the people who they would describe them as lost, reach the people who are lost, reach those people, invite them into church so that they can see what we're about and join the congregation. But that is something that churches have been doing since as long as I can remember, reaching those people that are not where the congregation is. And that's actually how churches grow. But it seemed like to me that is kind of what Bernie's message was about, right? He was like, we need to, capture the working class. We need to get all these people together and say, and explain to them, look, all these people need healthcare, that kind of thing, right? During that time when people were canvassing for Bernie Sanders, it was bragging. This is what Nick was talking about. It was bragging rights back then if you were able to flip Trump voters or Trump supporters. That was bragging rights if you could flip them on the issues. But now we're being told not to talk to those people. And that's why I have to question it. Because it's just if we had that mentality back then, if Bernie Sanders had that mentality back then and said, I'm not going to talk to those people, I'm only going to talk to people on the left, would he have done as great as he did in 2020? Would he have done as great? Would he have had the amount of support that he had? Not everybody who was at a Bernie rally was a lefty. That's a mistake, by the way. When people say that, that's a mistake. That's a flawed statement. I was at those rallies. So there were people there who were independents. There were some people there who were Trump supporters. at least in 2020, or had supported Trump in 2016, there were people on different sides of the spectrum. And the way that he was able to bring them together was on the issues.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why it's important. Like, I think we really need to look at what some of these churches have done and how they have been able to reach those people. We really need to look at that.
I can say that one thing that we don't do as much as we should, we don't evangelize leftist issues anymore. That's the thing. We don't evangelize workers owning the workplace and having a democratic say. We're not evangelizing the nationalization of the healthcare system. We're not evangelizing ending the wars like we used to. We're not evangelizing these things. And I'm saying it in that way so that it gets across to people that in order to do that, you have to actually talk to people who you don't agree with. You have to knock on the door. And then you have to be willing to not balk at some of the opinions that they were brainwashed into, and then make them feel bad for having those opinions. Because guess what? What if somebody made you feel bad for the opinions that you had 10 years ago?
That's right. Listen, we grew up during the 90s, during a time where people had some opinions back then that they don't necessarily have today. If you remember back then, JB, during that time when Ellen had her own sitcom.
Yeah.
Remember, like, she lost her show because she came out like publicly on the show. Her character did, and in real life. So people have to understand, like, JB and we grew up during a time where LGBTQ issues were not popular.
Yeah. And
I know plenty of people that did not agree with it.
Yeah.
Are they still that way today? No. But you had people grew. So that's what I'm saying. People have to grow.
Yeah. I'm going to make an admission. I don't understand non-binary. I don't understand it. But because of my growing, because of my evolution, I learned I don't need to understand it. All I need to do is accept the person for who they are, be respectful of their pronouns and who they want to be, and that's it. And just realize they are a person living the human condition. That's it. And that's how I grew, because I didn't understand it. I was like, non-binary. I'm like, whatever. I used to think that way, but now I don't anymore, because I realize, oh, okay. It's a construct. It's based on leaving this is based on leaving this construct and blah, blah, blah. And so I learned more. But it was through education and some people able to talk to me and speak to me, right? And able to teach me about these things. So I'm still learning. I'm still growing in this space. I'm not even a communist yet. There's some communists who are probably looking at me like, JB, what the hell's wrong with you, man? Why aren't you here yet? But I'm growing. But at the same time, I'm not there yet. But I'm on my way. But the thing is that it's about giving people the grace and space in order to be able to learn. And people will make mistakes in the learning process. There's a Ryan Wagner said deprogramming takes a long time. Thank you.
It does. I mean, there were people who were not it's a little bit more common today, but I remember even like when I was in school, the whole thing, like same-sex relationships, like that was not a thing. And it doesn't mean that there weren't people at my school that were LGBTQ. There were, like, there were always the people that we kind of figured that they were, but they didn't feel comfortable having a relationship, being out in the open and having a relationship with someone of the same sex, not during that time.
Yeah.
So it takes time.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't come out of the closet until almost 5 years ago.
See?
That's why.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to the left, I think one of the points Chris is getting at is that there seems to be no grace for people who are new to it.
Yeah. So Chris continues, says, now, fast forward to another issue that has pushed me out of this space. Besides the unscrupulous fighting, which gets the left nowhere, I've noticed that the left likes to talk tough with no action or a real concerted effort to fight for the cause in question. Example, telling people to punch a Nazi but too afraid to pressure progressives into Congress. The online left needs to come together on their present economic interests rather than just complaining on their YouTube channels. They feel that screaming into a bullhorn, getting beat up, and being unjustly detained by the police would somehow get them sympathy from a hypocritical populace who has no issue with voting for sexual deviant president. They think that somehow they would get noticed by the average American who has no issue with supporting a corrupt Eastern European country that has Nazis in it. The BLM protests prove nothing, only that dissent will never be considered by any liberal or Western leftists. Currently, there are only two outcomes that can produce results. One is waiting for the empire to fall, hoping that the left has a seat at the table when a new government forms, or the formation of a well-trained and organized militia that can actively stand against the tyranny of a nation which is inherently corrupt to the core. Complaining and yelling into the void on YouTube isn't going to cut it. Yelling in front of the Capitol steps and being mad because of an irrelevant member of Congress is dancing is not going to cut it. Marching down a city street where you need to get a permit and you are only allowed to protest when they tell you it's okay is not going to cut it. My disdain for the right and its trickery in pretending to care about Western corruption is justifiably true. But they are under no delusion that dissent can only be formed by fighting on all fronts, including having our militia. Not saying we need to go to war with our country.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, I think what Chris is trying to say here is that I don't think he's trying to tell you like not to protest, but I think what he's trying to say is that one protest, one rally, like that's not enough. You have to continue it. Now, I do know that there are more anti-war protests that are scheduled, that are coming up. There's a couple. There's one actually local here that's happening in Boston, but there's other ones that are scheduled as well. Like you have to continue. You have to continue it. Like, and this is the thing that Colin and I were asking when we were there is like, okay, so what's the next step? Like, what's step two? Because I've gone to multiple protests. I get really ramped up and excited and feel really energized after the fact. But then oftentimes there isn't a second step. And then the momentum dies and then people go back to their, respective corners. And I think that that's something that you have to be conscious of. Like he said, like complaining on YouTube isn't going to cut it. Like that's not enough. Like, yeah, you'll be able to educate people that way, but there needs to be other things that are happening along with it. And the way that you really help people is like Rome has taught us a lot of this. You really got to help people within the community. It's not just the protests. It's not just, the YouTube shows, but actually talking to people on the ground when you go to some of these protests, talking to people on the ground when you do mutual aid. When we did Tour for the Poor in Boston, it wasn't just like, hey, here's all this food and items. We talked to people at the same time and say, listen, this is why we're helping people and this is what we're about. That came from the Black Panthers. They were the ones that started that I know of, where they were actually telling people like, let me teach you about our government. Let me teach you about like socialism and why we need to help each other and build in our own communities, right? And again, I take it back to the churches because that's another thing that churches are really good at doing or used to be. I'm not talking about these mega churches that just bring in a lot of money, but the not mega churches, I should say, not like the TD Jakes like churches and stuff like that. But churches are really good at that as well. Giving back to the community, doing like these drives and donations where they give people clothes and food and stuff like that and bringing people off the street. They used to be good about bringing people off the streets. I'm not sure if that's happening much anymore, But it used to be where they would actually take those people in. And so I think that when you look at where you are on the left, whether you're on the left or the right, community building has to happen. It has to be a part of it. If you're not doing community building, then we're not really getting anywhere. That's the big thing that I think Rome really taught me.
Yeah. And I just want to show this, and we'll get back to the article in a minute. But this was from Kwame Ture, and let's take a listen.
We have told you it's a fact. If you look at history, I have known no great man or no great woman that didn't belong to an organization, not one. The American capitalist system will so confuse some of us that we will actually think that we by ourselves can lead the people to their freedom. There's no such thing as Rambo or Superman. It exists only in Hollywood. Fidel Castro, as bad as he is, he needs the Communist Party of Cuba to help direct Cuba. V.I. Lenin, as rough as he is, he needed a Bolshevik party. Karl Marx was a great man, had to organize the International Workingmen's Association. The Honorable Marcus Garvey saw clear and long, but he needed the Universal Negro Improvement Association of the African Community Leagues. Patrice Lumumba was a great man. He needed organization. Harriet Tubman was a rough sister. She needed organization. Rosa Parks sat down so we can get up. She needed organization. Malcolm X so loved organization that when he left the Nation of Islam, he created two organizations, the Muslim Mosque Incorporated for Muslims and the African American Organization, inspired after the Organization of African Unity. Everywhere you will see the need for organization. Martin Luther King was a righteous man, but even he recognized the need for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And while Nelson Mandela is known all over the world, he still has the African National Congress. Every brother or sister who truly seeks to advance the world must belong to an organization. This we will not stop telling you.
Basically.
Kwame Ture has a lot of great things to say.
Yeah. And so when it comes to that, it's, we can talk a lot about these things, but it's like, what are we doing on the ground? And then once we start doing things on the ground, then we realize quickly that we're still going to run into people who we may not agree with, but we're doing things on the ground. And then people who are on the ground with us, who may need some growing to do, they'll grow because they're seeing it done materially in front of them. So continuing on, says, but the seriousness on the left and its commitment to trying to change the nation to a more socially friendly democracy is unrealistically evident. The discussions of the tactic of carrying out small acts of civil disobedience are met with vigorous debate and condemnation by many different online Western left voices. You wouldn't believe all the infighting I would see in the DMs. Every time an organizer would try to organize a positive event, you would always count like clockwork for a heated exchange to take place from within. Like bickering teenagers, they would fight over where to have events, who was grifting and who wasn't, who was an op and who wasn't. They would produce team sport rivalries between factions.
Can I just say, every damn time?
Yeah.
Every time. This is also why I don't really like to be in DMs like that. Like I don't like that people can just add you to a DM group without you giving some type of approval or okay. I don't like that. I don't look at most of them. I think there's only one that I actually look at. It's just, but there's a lot of fighting, a lot of the things that happen behind the scenes that you guys, the audience, you don't get to see. And it's just every time, JB, everything. And I'll talk to Max about this later, but every single rally, protest that I have been, a part of, this has been an issue, regardless of who the speakers are, regardless of where it's taking place. It happens every single time. And there
Mhm.
are also people that I've seen go into those organizing spaces with the sole purpose of, tearing the event down,
Mhm.
making excuses as to why it shouldn't go forward because it's not being done the right way. And then
Yeah.
at the last minute, they bail and don't even show up to the event and leave all the work dropped on other people. Now, I'm not going to name any names here, but I
Mhm.
think you know who I'm talking about. But I'm just going to
Mhm.
say this is that there's a lot of infiltrators, and it's the same people. If you guys pay very close attention, ask yourself why it's the same people every damn time. And
Mhm.
you never see them organizing anything on their end. That
Mhm.
happens very often. And this is why I don't buy into play into the Twitter bullshit. It's
Yeah.
like, look, I'm going to promote an event. I'm going to tell you about an event. It's up to you to make up your mind whether or not you want to attend. But I damn sure am not going to be spending my time 24/7 on Twitter telling people not to go to something, whether I agree with it or not. Fuck
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. So continuing on. Oh boy. One of the most annoying parts about the online left is that if you say the wrong word, the leftist word police will extract a heavy toll on your insensitivity, which will get you excommunicated for life on Twitter. I'm making fun here, but it's an extreme, laughable scenario, if not just simply sad. You can say this is just normal behavior for the online left since I've been witnessing it regularly. I honestly feel that the online left is not serious about changing the world and shaping the political landscape, or at the very least, is completely ego driven. This is one part that I actually want to stop on.
Mhm.
Um, Ego is a big thing. Um, and one of the things that we have to find out and we have to figure out how to do is to let go of our ego. Let go of our egos for the sake of the people who we want to help. Because holding on to it does not get us anywhere. And having this ego about, you know, and then wanting to not speak, because I think you said this on one of your streams last week, was that you want to have different people on like say a panel, but because somebody pissed one person off, you can't even have a panel with these two people because one person doesn't want to be on the panel with them, even though like 85 to 90% of everything they agreed on. And I'm like, what?
That's why I haven't done panels in a while. That's exactly why, because people don't, it could be an issue that all of them agree on, but they don't want to be seen on screen next to the same person that, they now don't like for whatever reason, or it's just, it's frustrating. It's ridiculous. Like we've done multiple summits, like on this channel, JB, as you are aware, we ran into the same problems.
Yeah.
I don't want to be on with this person. I don't want to be on with that person. And that's why I said before, this is part of the reason why the left continues to fail. It's dysfunctional, it's very divisive, and we're not getting any wins. And again, if there's drama that happens on the right, I would say they do a pretty good job of not making it public for the most part. Now I know there was some issue with Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens or whatever, but besides that, most of the time they don't make it public. So it's like, even if there is some kind of like beef going on behind the scenes, we don't know about it. We're not privy to it. They present a united front for the most part. The left does not.
Let me ask you this, Sabby. Do you think part of it is because they are largely more religious?
I don't know. I mean, I felt like all of us were presenting um, more of a united front during the Bernie campaigns. I felt like we were all on board with, you know,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
even then, we may not agreed with all of that was another thing. Because remember, even back then, some of us were saying that Bernie Sanders should have a reparations plan. Remember that? But we
Mhm.
were still able to come together on the other policies.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's a big difference.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely. All right. Let's continue. So what have I been doing since I've been gone? Well, I have been away for a while to do my own thing. I have deleted all my accounts. I have kept my personal accounts. From what I have observed is that the left is nowhere to be found on social media. Not on TikTok, not on YouTube, not on Facebook, not Twitter, not any other platform. Unless you're Jimmy Dore or some other larger channel, you can basically expect to have a maximum of 50,000 followers.
Yep.
YouTube channels of people giving their dogs baths have more followers than the average leftist YouTuber. I've seen channels with men showing their laser disconnection have 500,000 followers. So why is this happening? Well, here are some of the reasons. One, the system will never push you into the algorithm unless you already have a celebrity or professional status, or you're just a sellout. Two, you lose support from potential viewers because you alienate anyone who doesn't agree with you 100% of the time you're on social media. Three, you cancel potential supporters because you're hypersensitive over words that may offend others. Four, you trust no one because anyone could be potential three-letter op. Five, you establish an unrealistic criteria of acceptance, which turns off people from joining your movement. Six, you fail to realize that the left is an extremely small movement online and has no say in any form of substantial change on all platforms, which are openly censoring them. Seven, you want cheerleaders instead of revolutionaries and potential newcomers who are interested in leftist ideology. Eight, those in power are not scared of you, but you think they are. That somehow at any moment they will fall. Nine, you don't study your enemies, their tactics, and their faults. All you do is complain about them. 10, you identify your viewers' pain, but have no solutions for them other than just screaming that everything is unfair. Damn.
I agree with Indy left on this. Number 6 is the most important, that we are actually extremely small. And I think this is the message that Nick was trying to get across, that Rome and Nick was trying to get across to people when they canvassed for Bernie Sanders. The majority of the country is conservative. So in order to get more people to support Bernie Sanders, they had to flip voters. And that's what people don't understand or may not understand. But yes, it is extremely small. That's why I was trying to say the other day, which is that we're not going to have a mass movement just with people on the left. There aren't that many of us. I think we thought that maybe we were bigger than we were because of Bernie Sanders, right? Because of the support that he had. But all those people weren't leftists. That's the thing that people really need to understand. So I think this is where the frustration comes from me. And all of those things that Chris mentioned there, that he listed there, that you just mentioned, at one point or another, all of us have been guilty of doing it. All of us have been guilty of doing one of those things. And I think that this is why I said, I think it was a couple days ago, I mentioned this about the direction where I wanted to go, like in reference to like my show and everything, is because like I started to get tired of, and you and I had this conversation. I started to get tired of the podcaster attacks, podcaster videos. I started to get tired of it because I felt like it got to the point where it was kind of depressing, because it's sad, because all it shows is that we have no community. All it shows is that we're not getting anywhere. We're not winning anything. And it's also sad because at one point or another, these are people that were all on the same page and were willing to fight for the same things. And I don't know, like, I know that gets views. He mentioned the YouTube algorithm. It does get views. There's certain things that we talk about, JB, that the algorithm does not push out. Whenever we talk about, when I do the Black History Month feature, like the algorithm is not pushing out those clips. The algorithm doesn't push out when I talk about housing or like homelessness. Those things aren't pushed out. But as soon as I do a clip from a stream, and the most recent one was the Joe Rogan one. With Joe Rogan, boom, the algorithm and you know how I know it's pushing it out? Because if we go into YouTube Studio, it'll tell you this video is getting more views than usual. And if you click on that message, it'll show you how people found the video. And most of the time, people found the video for me because it was on the home page. If it's on the home page, that means that YouTube is pushing it out. But it doesn't push out those other issues that we talk about. Like when we talked about, CJ did a stream where he talked about like Malcolm X, MLK, where he did another one where he talked about the different types of socialism. The algorithm don't push those things out.
Yeah. Or even when I did on last Sunday, I talked about war crimes with Zoya. This was probably one of the lowest viewed streams I've ever done. It had one of the lowest. It was Super Bowl Sunday, right? There was nobody. I'm sorry. No, it wasn't that. I'm sorry. It was the day of the rally, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, there may have been some people that were watching the rally, but even still, right? It was one of the lowest amounts of people that I've ever had. And so it just goes to show that when it comes to the more weightier issues, then yeah. And of course, pointing out the logical fallacies of some people who have a large following is also important, because you have to know that some people are just arguing in bad faith in order to keep you within the Democratic Party. That is true. But at the same time, when it comes to actually talking about some of the weightier things, it's just dead. And
the policing,
part of it. Oh yeah, that's another thing.
Policing videos. Every time we do policing videos, those are heavily buried by the algorithm. Like it definitely doesn't want to push those out. So
yeah. And so we got to remember that technically we're on an enemy's platform. So how are we expecting to get out there when we're not talking about the things that they actually want? By they, I'm talking about the people who own the platform, the people who own, all these different things, the capitalists, basically.
Right. But he has a point about you'll probably get to the max of like 50K, and that's pretty much it, because the algorithm did change and all that kind of stuff. But he has a point about that like it's not reaching as many people as it should. And part of the main reason is because of the algorithm. But it's really sad that like it's sad to see Chris go, because I do feel like that was a valuable voice in this space. But we've seen this happen with multiple people, right, JB? Like we've seen a lot of people come and go. And I think that, a lot of the things that he said, I felt like it's very valid. And it just gets to the point where I think for some people mentally, it's too much. It's just too much. And you start to feel like hopeless and things like that. But it's sad that Chris had to leave because of it. And he's not the first one that I've seen have the same criticism and say, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we need to come to terms with, is that it's like, okay, what are some of our flaws, right? And how can we fix these in order to make it so that we can start getting some headway on actual material policies? Because the problem I see right now is a lot of people who complain online, and sometimes I'm one of them too. I'm gonna be real. I'm one of them. And I have to be honest with myself. But what are we doing, in order to help change that? And the thing is that a lot of people who are constantly on the ground, they're not the ones that are online, as much. and they're the ones who are making headway. And this is why, I try to talk to them and bring them on my show. I know you try to talk to them and bring them on. I know Nick and CJ will, do what they can to bring people who are literally on the ground on, journalists, activists, organizers, people like that. I can't do as much as I would like to, but I try to bring them on at least to amplify their voice. And so I think it's a matter of what are you doing in order to change the thing that you're complaining about.
Yeah, because I don't see these people out in the streets. Like when the times when I'm out in the streets, I see people who I see people in the audience. I see RBN viewers. Like when I went to the rally, there were multiple RBN viewers that somehow found me. And it was really interesting. And all those people, I was like, I don't know how they found me, but they did. But multiple RBN viewers. And same thing when I was at the Julian Assange rally, same thing. When I've done the policing rallies here, same thing. Even local rallies here in Boston, like I see you guys out there in the street. Like when Rome came here to do Tour for the Poor, who reached out for help? You guys. Like you got RBN viewers reached out for help. But I think the problem is like where a lot of the criticism is coming from. I don't see those people. I don't see them, JB. That's the thing. It's just like
yeah. And so
it's just sad. It's sad. It's depressing. And we're heading into 2024. So obviously there's going to be more news around like as we get closer to the election, there's going to be more news about that and that kind of thing. But I think I'm just tired of the back and forth, especially when it happens on Twitter to me. I'm just like, oh God. Like why?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand it. What happened to the days of people just hashing things out? Like,
yeah. Willie Bragg says, I saw Sabby, Lucy, and Big Mad Crab, but it was crowded. None saw me.
Oh, Willie. Man. I'm sorry. Yeah, it really was. Like, it was a lot of people, even though Rachel Maddow was like, it was tiny. It wasn't tiny. There were a lot of people. There weren't like 50,000 people like there were in Denmark. No. But it was the biggest one I've been to since the George Floyd protests. Because even the Assange rally, it was like 200 people that came to that one. But they did say like that was the biggest for them for that action for Assange. But this was the biggest one I've been to since George Floyd protests.
Yeah. I was at the March for Medicare for All. And when I went to that, there was probably 50 to 75 people, right? Tops.
There was like 100 at the one in Boston. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you add up all over, I think it was like 54 cities, it was a pretty big turnout, so I think that's something, and I'm trying to get out on the ground with different organizations, just like what Kwame Ture said. Salt says, get those RBN chapters going, guys. We need to move offline and do real world organizing. Yes, absolutely.
We are launching them. I know we pushed it back because workers strike back launches in March. So we pushed it back to April because we didn't want it to conflict with that. Because I know some of you guys are probably want to get involved with that too. And that would be a lot going on at the same time.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. Go ahead, JB. I was trying to find something and I lost. Oh, this Monarch. Sabby, I definitely noticed you are not engaging on tweets that make jabs to smear you or RBN. I think that's the correct move there. Ignore them. Yeah, I don't even look at my mentions. I am a ghost.
The mute button is a beautiful feature. Oh my God. It's a beautiful
feature. Fucking ghost on social media. I post and peace the fuck out.
Yeah. And so, that's something that I'm trying to focus on is being more on the ground. It's just my physical limitations, and now so that leads on to my mental limitations too. I have to kind of maneuver a little bit more than, the average person. But you can ask Rome when, you know, we were doing Tour for the Poor here in Orlando. It got to the point where I almost passed out when we were doing the gas run. And it was because I have, you know, my fatigue is major. And so, but I was able to get out there, but it's like I need days and days just to recover. And, you know, but I still do want to do more, at least locally here, because I don't want to just be chronically online, you know, to talk to people. And, you know, of course, I talk to people outside, you know, like whenever I'm going to dialysis and things like that, I try to do that, you know, but it's just not easy, you know, when you're dealing with a chronic illness. And so that's why I'm not out as much as I would like to be, but I'm trying to reach out to see more people. And if you're in Orlando or if you're in Central Florida and you're watching, you know, let's get together. You know, if I have enough money to get to work, you know, to meet you, then let's get together. Let's, you know, try to see if we can get together with a different organization and be able to do stuff. You know, I may not be able to do it that as much as everybody else, but I still want to do something. You know what I mean? So, and that's like when Kwame Ture said, you know, every person, every revolutionary that you knew was part of an organization. That's important too.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because people, you know, we have a lot going on. Things that you guys don't see. We have a lot going on. I mean, I had to spend, what was it, a couple hours ago shoveling out my car. So by the time I got on this stream, I was like, phew, that was a workout, you know? But I mean, like I don't like to spend all day like on social media. I don't think it's healthy. I really don't.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Yeah. And so I think one thing I am grateful for is that our audience is doing the damn thing, like you like to say, and they're trying to, you know, do as much as they can in their local area. Part of it I attribute to the influence of Rome, you know, because Rome is one of my heroes and he's doing the damn thing, you know, and like he said, everybody has a place. And I think that's something that we all have to recognize. But in order to get people to that place, there has to be some education taking place. And I think we can help out with that. It just requires us to be more, it's not accepting the flaws, but tolerating the flaws at first in order to help them to adjust to see that it is a flaw. If that makes any sense?
Yeah.
So,
can we show the article again, JB, for people who just came in wondering what we're referring to?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I highly recommend that you guys read this, you know, when you have time, read it on your own as well. Why I left the online left. I don't know where this S came from. Why I left the online left, my departure from the online left and its inability to solve its own internal insecurities. And that is by Chris Legion. So again, that was written back in January, guys. And so I want to preface that to let people understand that this was not written after the rally. This was written before that even happened. So this was back in January. So it's just sad because it's like we lost another one. And it just, I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, you know how I am, JB. Like, I don't like seeing people leave. Like, because it's kind of sad. Like, especially like the newer voices. But I also understand the frustration. And I think it got to the point for Chris where he was just tired of it. And he's like, I don't want to rock with this shit anymore. So he's focusing on the ground. Now, one of the things he did say he's doing, I think it's towards the end of the article, he's actually starting a laundry. He's trying to start a laundromat. And
do you want me to read it?
Oh, yeah, he's starting a laundromat. Yeah, go ahead. You found it? Okay.
Yeah. He said, I realize that the best course of action is to make change where my strengths lie. I recently been focusing my energy on a new laundry business I will be acquiring. Inspired by activists like Rome from RBN, I will be setting days where I can help homeless and low-income families wash their clothes for free, giving back through mutual aid and working in small part to make some minor changes in people's lives. If things take off and we purchase more locations, we can expand the programs to more low-income neighborhoods. I feel my time is better spent doing this rather than looking for ideological cheerleaders on Twitter. So yeah, so basically that's what, he's doing on the ground.
Rome inspired a lot of people. That's another thing I haven't mentioned on here is the number of people that have, when I do run into you guys in person, it seems to happen more in DC than it happens here, which is really funny. People are like, Rome, inspired me to do this. There's a guy in the UK, Marlon. He's reached out before and he said it was actually Rome who inspired him to start a mutual aid chapter in the UK. Mm-hmm. So it's like, he's really showed us like what can be possible, something else that you could be doing instead of just screaming into a void.
Oh yeah, and there was some. Oh my God, I think it was CEB Applejack, and they were talking about how they raised $20,000 to help people. And that, yeah. And the thing is that there's so many people that are using their voice, and it's just like I like to say on my channel, is that look. I had Kevin Ronka on from Right Brain Studios. He's the one who helped direct and produce Rome's documentary, Death to America. Mm-hmm. But he's a filmmaker. What strengths do you have? Are you a filmmaker? Do you want to do something like that? What about, are you a photographer? Can you help in that capacity? Do you like to write music? Do you like to help in that capacity? Do you like to bake pies? Do you know of an action that's going on where people are protesting or people are doing some organizing work and you want to bake pies for people? Or look, are you good at computers? Could you donate some of that time to help programming for people who need it? Or do you have some spare computers that you can give to our organization so that they can increase their work? There's so many different things. And, I don't care if you're somebody who is disabled like me, and all you can do is be online. Are you sharing the links to different organizations and saying, hey, here's what they're doing over here. Hey, here's what they're doing over here, right? Like, for instance, you could go to the Uhuru movement, the African People's Socialist Party. You can talk about what they're doing, right? Or you can go to, Strike.
That's Marlon.
Oh, hey. Hi, Sabby and Jaybe. Thanks for the shout out, Sabby. We had a mutual aid day Saturday. We gave food, toiletries, water, clothes, and advice to over 40 people who are homeless. Oh,
that's right. That's awesome.
Everybody give Marlon a clap in the chat.
That is awesome. We're so proud of you. So proud of you. Shout out to Heartlands.
Oh, hey, kid. Good to see you. Happy late birthday, by the way.
Happy late birthday, kid.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's so many things that you can do. And here's the thing I want people to realize. You have value. And you can use your strengths. I don't care. Look, I'm a loudmouth. What look what I'm doing. Somebody like Sabby is great at having dialogue with other people. Look what she's doing, right? Rome, he's loud and active. And look what he's doing. So everybody has something that they can do. And, like, for instance, I talk about Strive, Pensacola. They're, trying to provide housing for people who are trans and non-binary, in the Central Florida area, in the Florida area, right? You have KC Tenants, who Nick is a part of. They're also trying to provide tenant rights and help tenants in their area. And so there's so many different things. You don't have to be just limited to doing what we're doing. And it doesn't also take money. Sometimes it just takes time and energy. That's maybe all you can have, but that's good enough,
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. Especially JB mentioned those of you that like to cook, because like I know some of you said that you really like to cook. Like that can be a great help to people.
Yeah, definitely. And
Kid is
so
a Pisces. Oh, sorry. I saw the part
what
said kid
happened?
is a Pisces. Me too. I'm a Pisces too. I am also a Pisces.
Nice. We're both water. I'm a Cancer.
First we're sour, then we're sweet.
All right.
It's true. Pisces, we can be temperamental. Like first we're sour, then we're sweet.
I have a hard outer shell, which means I'm crunchy on the outside, but chewy on the inside. But dude, why you get me started, Sabs?
Gosh. Kid agrees. Kid agrees. He said he can't rage.
But Kid, you rage in a productive way, though. See, it's very productive. It actually is. It's a righteous indignation. That's what I love about it. Yeah. Colin said, if you say so.
Listen, Pisces, we can be the sweetest people until you piss us off.
Oh, gosh. Oh, I've seen Sabby pissed off. Keep all the sharp objects away. But but yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I think that, at least I'm trying to grow towards. And I think I'm critiquing myself while reading that article, because I need it too.
Yeah. Like I said, I think there wasn't one thing in that article that, all of us haven't been guilty of at some point or another. Because we feel the hardest. Yeah, we can be pretty emotional, man.
I'm very emotional, but I'm not a Pisces. But so Max Blumenthal this evening, huh?
Yeah, Max Blumenthal will be on. I'm going live early tonight at 6 p.m. instead of 8 because Max is coming on. I'm sure he has a lot to say. So
you bet. There's gonna be a lot said.
He's gonna come on to talk about the rally. I think Max knows a little bit more about it than I do, even though I was also there, but he knows more about like the organizing front and stuff like that. So he's gonna come on to talk about that. And hopefully we'll see, like, is there some way to bridge like this divide, like going forward? Because what's crazy is there's another anti-war rally happening in DC in March. And because there's been so much focus on this one, even though it's over, the other one isn't getting the attention, So that's the thing. Like for people who are saying, go to that rally, which you guys, do what you want, like go to that rally. I feel like it's not really being talked about much. Most of the focus seems to be on this one that's already done.
Yeah, I definitely want to at least bring somebody who's going to be on about it, and then highlight the rally on my channel, just like I did with the last one. I want to make sure I do that too, because I still want to highlight any anti-war rallies that I can. But yep. So I will be doing on my channel. I'll be doing the Assata Shakur reading. I'll be continuing that. Please make sure. Oh, by the way, just want to make sure I get to this. Adding, thank you so much for the super sticker. Much appreciated. Much love. Thank you so very much for that. Also, just wanted to tell you guys again for the I love this picture. To pay Aaron, our fundraiser, please help us out through either Venmo or Cash App. You guys can go to @Revolutionary Blackout on Venmo or $ Mutual Aid Forever on Cash App for the fundraiser for RBN. Thank you so very much. Do it for the kiddies. All right? Do it for the kiddies.
Yeah.
And please make sure to go to our Substack to be on our mailing list as well. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to all the patrons on Patreon, as well as all of the new members. We had like over 30 members sign up on Tuesday when we launched our memberships. So thank you so very much. That also helps us out again. Thank you so much, James Sparks. I'm sorry.
Oops, that was me.
Thank you so much for the super sticker, James Sparks. Appreciate it very, very much. Look, take care, everybody. You guys have yourself a wonderful day. Make sure to stay tuned on RBN in another 30 minutes. I think CJ is going live at 3, so make sure to stay tuned for RBN. And all 200 or over 200 of y'all, go to see CJ and tell him I said what's up. All right. All right. Love you all.
Yay.
Have a wonderful day. Bye. Cue the music, y'all.